Sometimes when you throw a bit of a tantrum or you lose your rag a little bit, I think it's because you care too much.
Our guest today is one of the true legends of English cricket.
I did go off the rails a little bit.
One of the sport's finest spin bowlers, Phil the Cat Tufnell.
Through support from other people and what have you, sort of managed to drag myself back a little bit.
Phil became known for his distinctive, slow, left-arm, orthodox spin bowling, both on the international stage for England and in club cricket for Middlesex.
Well, they've asked me to write a little letter to my hero of heroes. I just like... Oh, dear. I just like to... I can't even do it. I can't even do it. I can't do it.
Welcome to Heroes Have Heroes, Phil Tufnell. Phil, for your quote that best sums up your attitude to life, you've chosen "You're only remembered for your parties."
Well, I can remember my father was a big sort of like, he was a good lad, my dad. He always said to me, son, you're only remembered for your parties, because when that day comes, you know, and you're shuffled down the old thing, you know what I mean? He said, no one ever sort of gets up and says a few words like, you know, oh, he was a really hard worker, or, you know, they always just say, you never used to run out of beer at a party. You know what I mean? I was very fortunate, really, as a youngster. I mean, my mum and my dad were very sporty. You know, there wasn't a rose bush in the garden, you know what I mean? Because we'd smashed them all down with football. There wasn't a blade of grass on that little bit of lawn because it was always a goalmouth area. They stood on the sidelines at football, freezing, you know what I mean? And cricket, you know, we'd go all over the country and they'd always take me. And I wouldn't say I was naturally sort of like an academic, you know what I mean? I was always looking out the window at the sports fields, you know what I mean? Always wanting to play football or cricket or what have you. So they'd pick the football team up in his Volvo estate. All the nets would be in the back, you know. And so to have that support, you know, was crucial, really. Well, my mum and dad, I've got a lot to thank for, really. They were always there for me. As you say, I was a little bit of a rebel when I was young, and they used to pull their hair out a little bit at me. You know, they'd tell you off, of course they would, you know what I mean? But then you'd wake up the next day and it was sort of all forgotten, you know, and so had their support and their backing all the way, you know, through my life. Even if you were being a bit of a silly sod, you know what I mean? They'd always support me and stand up for me and back me, and they made so many sacrifices for me. Looking back, that you know, I'll be forever in their debt. My first sort of recollections of cricket were probably sort of in the back of my dad's car going down to Brighton or something, you know, stuck in a traffic jam, and there'd be the radio on, you know, and you'd hear this sort of, you know, these voices and this sort of like anticipation and excitement wafting through, you know, on the airwaves, you know. Everything seemed right with the world, you know what I mean? And then you'd go out and you'd buy your first pair of football boots and, you know, you used to have to my dad would take the studs out and you'd wear them in, you know, walking round the house, you know, and you'd be, you know, putting the linseed oil on your bat and things. So that really took my sort of imagination towards sport, you know. Oh, I also had an older brother, which was always handy, 4 years older. So if you know what I mean? So he had all his older mates playing football and cricket. And so if I wanted to go and play with them, you had to be quite good. Otherwise they go, sorry, get rid of the younger brother. He's not very good. I was a competitor, especially when I was a youngster. But I played cricket, you know, through the age groups till I was about 15 or 14 or something like that. And then my mum passed away, which was then a tricky old time, you know what I mean? I sort of like went, oh, sod the world and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Started bunking off school and gave away my cricket and hanging around, you know. It was a very strange time, really. I can't actually remember too much about it, actually. From one minute being in a very sort of warm, sort of family atmosphere, all of a sudden the house just goes cold. And, you got to grow up pretty quickly. Yeah, I can remember my dad sitting us down actually, and saying, right, we're free fellas, and we're going to have to look after ourselves now. It's a wake up call. That is for sure. My father was a silversmith, worked in a sort of a factory down in Clerkenwell, the Angel, and I did that for a while. You know what I mean? Before I then was a professional sportsman, and it was a very good trade. You know what I mean? But we was in this sort of silversmith factory banging pots and pans, And my father one day said, I was sitting at my bench, whacking all the pots and pans, and he said, son, your eyes have gone a little bit dark, And I said, what? He said, I've sorted you out a trial at Middlesex. And I said, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with all this cricket, Dad, and everything. And he said to me, son, I'll give you a full day's pay. I said, I'll give you a full day's pay. And he said, the trial's only an hour and a half. And even I could do the maths. I went, and he said, then you can go home. And so I've gone, oh, crikey, well, that's all right. That sounds good. So then I got on my fizzy, on my FS1 like that. I got my boots on my bag and I drove down there. And I'm very lucky. I don't think you could probably do it now. I don't think you could do it now that you can slot straight back into it, because I'd given it away for about 2 or 3 years. If you just take your foot off the gas, people go past you. But thankfully, I managed to sort of just slot back into it. So I owe my dad a whole lot of that. He sort of like took that decision out of my hands, and I'll be ever thankful for that. Because then I had a lovely time, you know what I mean? And then I realised when I got, we was messing about, playing cricket in the sunshine, selling the scorecards at Lord's with, 20-year mates, you know what I mean? It was wonderful. Well, I'll be forever grateful to my mum and dad for then, showing me the way, really. Not bashing you over the head with a stick to get there, but to then sort of find it in your own way a little bit. Because I think sometimes if you push too much or bullied too much, I think sometimes you then fight against that, you know what I mean? So then sort of like, just be cajoled in that right way. I'll be forever thankful to them, There wasn't a lot knocking about when I was sort of growing up, really. Yeah. So when punk came along, I just thought, oh, well, that's a bit of me. Yeah. Go out there and be a little bit sort of, sort of have a go at everyone and snarl a bit and sort of like, this is me, this is what I'm going to do. You can add a Mohican as well. Great big Mohican. Yeah, great big Mohican, sugar water and sort of coloured food dyes.
So who were you trying to copy there? Anybody in the...
Well, that was my punk days, Sex Pistols and, crikey, the UK Subs and all these people came along, which was just a bit different. And all the clothes, all the tartan bondage trousers and the bikers' jackets and everything. Well, the Sex Pistols have been important in my life. That sort of anti-establishment, rebellious sort of nature just sort of like clicked with me a little bit, you know what I mean? And it made things a little bit more interesting, It was all just sort of like going to school and, and the clothes and everything. Everything was just a bit dull, and a bit brown. I can always remember, what was it on? Was it on Nationwide or something, or Russell Harty or something? I can't remember. Their first ever sort of interview they ever did, And there was, I don't know, I think they would, there was, all the interviewers were all parky or something, you know what I mean? They're all wearing brown suits and brown shirts with brown ties, And then all of a sudden, and sort of playing the game. They were all playing the game, it seemed, in those days. And then these lads came in and they were going, hey, bollocks, yeah, you know what I mean? And messing about and throwing water all over him, you know what I mean? It was just something that, sort of went, oh, pricked my imagination a little bit, They all seemed like, trying to break out of all the brownness. Was there a slight sort of anti-establishment sort of feeling about me? I mean, I played at Lord's all my career, and the first time I turned up, I was in my jeans, I had a ponytail, about 5 earrings in. Yeah, you know what I mean? And all these other guys had turned up in blazers and ties, and they weren't going to let me in. And so I've always had that sort of streak. I'll prove you wrong a little bit. And they used to say, well, you're playing at Lord's, and all the members used to sort of like, who's this bloody bloke? You know what I mean? And so I used to say, well, I'll make sure, because I'll bowl this lot out for you, you know what I mean? And then you won't have anything to say, I can remember Mike Gattin, my captain, he said to me, it was the last game of the season, he said, Mickey Stewart, the England coach, is coming down to look at you. The ponytail's got to go. And I went, what? No way, I ain't getting rid of my ponytail for no one, you know what I mean? If they want to pick me for England, they'd pick me as I am and all this kind of stuff. And so he grabbed hold of me before the game, like a child, you know what I mean? Sort of put me under his arm and frog marched me down to the hairdressers. And this barber gave me a short back and sides. And I was going, this bloody hell, what he said. But he was spot on, because they then did pick me for England. But then again, I think that's that sort of little bit of rebellious streak in me, which I think I got from my dad a little bit, Don't let these people sort of look down at you, you know what I mean? Just because they're having a gin and tonic and have come up, in a Rolls Royce at Lord's, don't let them bully you. If anything, I think that it made me the cricketer I was, actually. You've got to have a little bit of bite. You have. If you go out there and try to be nice and not have a swear at the batsman or have a go at the umpire, I don't think I would have been the bowler that I was, because you have to have that sort of, you've got to have something to bite on. I mean, sometimes I was perhaps made to stand in the corner a little bit during my cricket career. They always said I was a bit disrupting or a disruptive influence when I was young, but I was extremely loyal to my side and loyal to my teammates and would always have their back. People said that I perhaps didn't care enough about me cricket. Sometimes when you throw a bit of a tantrum or you lose your rag a little bit, I think it's because you care too much. I should have played more than 42 test matches. Most of the time I was in trouble and they didn't pick me because of things outside of cricket, and I wasn't necessarily the person that they saw representing their country. I think at the time I was thinking to myself, perhaps, so what, you know what I mean, this is me, this is the way I do it, and this, that, and, but when I sort of look back at it, I wished I'd have been a little bit cuter and a little bit more accommodating, perhaps. You had to then realise that you weren't going to get anywhere, you know what I mean? There are certain things that you have to do. You can't just walk around all the time, sticking 2 fingers up at everyone, you know what I mean? You can't do that. And so I thank cricket a lot for that, actually, because they sort of, I was like that for about 4 or 5 sort of years, but then then you realise that, you can't keep going around like that if you then want to sort of progress and go up the ladder.
And who were your first cricketers around that time that you thought,
well,
yeah,
yes.
I like these guys?
Yeah, well, Ian Botham. Ian Botham was a young Ian Botham. I'd just been selected in the England side, and he walked in, never ever met him before. And I just sort of went, wow, you know what I mean? This is what it's all about, because it was all a little bit sort of constricted, if you know what I mean. You had to do the right thing. You had to wear you had to be seen to be doing the right thing. And it was all a little bit stuffy, but then when he walked in, saying what he thought and who cares sort of thing, this is the way I am. So it was just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? I love this bloke, he's great. And he just sort of, I warmed to him straight away, you know what I mean? Instead of that being, oh my God, he's my hero and everything, he very sort of, he made you feel very much at ease as a youngster in that sort of dressing room. He was my hero growing up as a boy, you know what I mean? And then to have the pleasure of playing with one of your heroes, I mean, it's a you know, I mean, that is quite a box-ticking exercise, not only for his cricket as well, but then for also all his walks he did. He used to do his walks for leukemia, what my mum died of, you know, raised millions of pounds for leukemia. And so there was that sort of link. He showed me that you could still play sport and at the highest level and still have a good time and play it with a smile on your face. And that it wasn't all about pressure and, you know, trying to perform and whether you win or lose. And don't look back and say, oh, crikey, I wished I'd have done this and I wished I'd have done that. Just, you know, just go out there and enjoy it. And a little bit sort of what will be, will be. You've got to have that confidence in yourself, I suppose, especially when you're playing sport, you know what I mean? You've got to have that inner belief. And that's another thing that Beefy had, you know, that's the one thing I've noticed about the greats in sport, you know, they never waver from I'm the person to win the game. They'd be 600 for two, you know what I mean? And he'd go, give me the ball, you know what I mean? Give me the ball, I'll bowl them out, you know what I mean? And then I'll go and get the runs, you know what I mean? It's that inner belief of their own ability. When you're playing against the best in the world, you know what I mean? They're bloody good. I think I perhaps had an imposter syndrome feeling when I was batting because I couldn't bloody see it, you know what I mean? But with the ball in my hand, I thought I could get anyone out. And when you're rising to that level, that's the easy part, actually. The hard part is then staying at that level. That's what then becomes tricky because people then work you out on what you're about, you know what I mean? And that's just not physically and how you bowl, but mentally as well. So you've got to forever be evolving your own mental sort of place where you are because these boys are trying to dismantle it. He was great on the field, Beefy, you know, always used to have a laugh and a joke. He used, you know, I think sometimes when you play sport, it becomes so, you're in such a bubble, you know, that you kind of sometimes forget what's going on around you. And he sort of like, you know, perhaps a little bit too much occasionally, but you know, go out and see the world, you know what I mean? And, you know, if you're playing in Australia, you know, don't just stay in your hotel room, you know, get out and see the place and go and experience everything that's going on because it's gone in a flash. Play hard on and off the field. Well, there's a lot. I've been on 9 or 10 England tours and you know what I mean? There's a lot going on in those tours, 16 or 17 fellas. You know, and you're staying in hotels and everything all around the world and everything. I don't reckon I stayed in one night. Some of the boys would have the chicken and rice and, you know, in room service and sort of, I don't know, stroke their bats before the next day, you know, and start doing push-ups in the room and have a complete night in. But I don't think I had one night in, you know what I mean? I always found if you start making it a big thing, you know what I mean? What I've done all my life, just do what you did all your life. You know what I mean? To get there in the first place. Why then, when you get there, do you then start doing push-ups in your room at 9:30 in the evening and start eating chicken and rice? Because that's not what got you there in the first place. So just keep doing what feels natural to you. Otherwise, it becomes a bit more pressure and you start sitting in your room like, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow? It's difficult to get a performance out of yourself with all this external stuff going on around you and pressure and press and this and that, let alone you're going to be facing the West Indies bowling 100 mile an hour at your head and Brian Lara and Ricky Ponting and Sachin Tendulkar and atmosphere and 120,000 people, you know, at the MCG all fucking shouting and screaming at you and calling you every name under the sun. You know, you want to turn up there fresh, you know what I mean? Best when fresh was my motto. Yeah. And also, win or lose, we're on the booze, and if we draw, we'll have some more. But people sometimes saw that as a weakness, but I saw it as a bit of a strength. And I got that from Ian Botham, actually. Like most sportsmen of my era, you think you're just going to play all your life, and you don't foresee the future, because you're forever in that sort of, as you say, that adrenaline of playing and everything and this and that and being with your mates and everything, and then it just goes boom, stopped. And sometimes people just go, oh, crikey, well, what the hell am I going to do now? You're 37 or something. That's all I've known all my life. You know, a lot of the guys find it very difficult. I was very fortunate then to, you know, have these things put in front of me, you know, which then kept that buzz, you know what I mean? Oh, crikey, we're all going off to Australia, go and do the jungle. Oh, wow, you know what I mean? What an experience. I mean, feel very privileged, really, to be able to have those experiences. I mean, the jungle was brilliant. I loved the jungle. I just retired from cricket, and they said, you know, do you fancy going into the jungle? And I think I said, well, did they fly you to Australia first class? And they said, well, yeah. And I said, I'm your man. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah, the sort of the whole bigness of it, if that's the right word. You're thrown out of helicopters and, you know, have a bit of fun, sit around a campfire and, you know, eat a few bugs. You know what I mean? I thought it was great. You know what I mean? It was a challenge. And I tell you what else it did. It you know, it makes you feel you're alive. I tell you, you know, it makes you feel you're alive when you get, you know, that first time that I walked out on Strictly Come Dancing, you know, and you're in a, you know, cerise pink top, you know, slashed to the navel, you know, spray tan, and you think, shit, what am I doing? 12 million people live, and you're sort of going, fuck, what the hell? What? I mean, your heart's pumping, mate, I tell you. I knew I was in trouble in the dancing when my dance partner said to me, dancing with you is like moving furniture. She said...
Oh,
yeah,
brilliant.
so I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to win this one, but I'll give it a go. And I've been extremely lucky, so lucky like that, to have, you know, then done that jungle and won it. I mean, crikey, I mean, you know, that is so lucky. Well, I certainly don't see myself as a hero to anyone, really. No, that's the last thing I see myself as. It's nice to... it's nice for people to come up to you and say, oh, I saw you do this, that was great, and I saw you bowl that, and I saw you do this, which is lovely, but I don't particularly see myself as a hero at all. I think one of the biggest things in men's health, and you know, is that you have got to talk about it. A lot of the guys, you know, are out there and you've got to be a bit macho and you've got to be a bit tough, got to be down the pub and smiling and the sort of like life and soul and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes, you know, that's difficult, you know what I mean? That's difficult. I've had a little bit of myself, you know, when I was away playing and things are bad at home and things, and you sort of like, you know, roll your sleeves up, young man. You know what I mean? What's the matter with you? You're playing for England. Yeah, but hold on a minute. Things aren't great at home. I haven't seen the kids. I haven't seen this. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like you've almost got to make choices between things, you know what I mean? Because you can't see a way through it. You know what I mean? Well, I've got to go and play for England. But then also there are other things that are very much important as well. And it's very difficult to do, you know. Very difficult to be everything all the time. So all those pressures sometimes, you know, they build up on you, you know. And if you just then bottle it up and don't necessarily speak about it, they become even bigger.
Do you think you have or feel any of those pressures now? And your wife, how do you think she helps you feel happy and enjoy life?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, she does. She's more enthusiastic than I am. She's got more energy than I have. She always sees the bright side of things. She has that ability to, you know, make the best of everything. Yeah, it was love at first sight for me. It was love at first sight. I was playing in a six-a-side match, a benefit match, having a good day and everything like that. And this chap's walked along past me, and he said, oh, there's someone on the phone who wants to say hello to you, Phil. So I've gone, yeah, all right, mate, no worries. So I've gone, hello, mate, how are you? He said, are you by the Braemar tent? And I went and I looked round, and I was by the Braemar tent, and he said there's a lovely girl there I work with in there called Dawn. He said, why don't you go and say hello? So I went, what a good idea, like that. So I walked off the ground. I walked off the ground into this tent where they were all having lunch, and I'm going, where's Dawn? Where's Dawn? Then someone's gone, oh, she's over here, like that. Come down, I've pulled up a chair and I've sat next to her and gone, all right, Dawn, this bloke says you're lovely. And she's going, oh my God, who the hell are you? You know what I mean? Who's this plonker? It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, talk about, sliding doors and everything, she's made my life so much better, you know what I mean? Yeah, wonderful, you know what I mean? Always got a smile on her face, always takes every opportunity to, be happy, and sometimes it's difficult all the time to be happy, isn't it? You know what I mean? But she, very rarely does she not see the good in anyone and things like that. So, yeah, blessed. I think my mum must have sent her down for me.
Phil, we've touched on the brilliant qualities of your dad, and he learned so much from your grandfather and what his time in the RAF meant to him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, my grandfather was in the Royal Flying Corps back in the day. He used to be, that goes back to the silversmith, he used to be a coppersmith. So he used to make the engines for all the Sopwith camels, and this is bloody the old biplanes, First World War. Yeah, he had that sort of attitude that, you're here one day and you're gone the next, you know what I mean? They were sort of like the posh boys, the flyers. Brave fellas they were. They used to get in these flying machines that have only just been built. He didn't give them parachute. I don't know, the boss bloke didn't used to give them parachutes because it just goes to show how stupid people are. Didn't give them parachutes. And those things, once they got hit, they used to go up like nobody's business. They wouldn't give them parachutes because they thought that they'd be cowards and they'd just jump out. And so the lads used to have to take a pistol up with them. So when they caught fire and they were going down, they used to have to shoot themselves in the head. And my granddad had to then go out and drag all the planes back, But then they finally realised that, they weren't cowards at all, and they were worth more than the aeroplanes. So they then started, giving them parachutes. Ridiculous. And I went up in one, actually. I was lucky enough. There's an Avro somewhere in Sussex or something. I think it's the only one, and you sat on it. And they were brave boys, they were brave boys. I think that the flyers they lasted like 2 weeks, And I went up on it and I could see why he was sitting on the petrol tank, like on a wicker chair. They've only just learned how to fly. So you got to enjoy your time when you're here. Well, they've asked me to write a little letter to my hero of heroes. And that is to you, Dawny. There we go. You know this anyway. I tell you all the time. I just like... Oh, dear. I just like to... oh, blimey, Riley, crikey. What the hell? I just like to... I can't even do it. I'd just like to thank you, my beautiful wife, for always being there for me, putting up with me all the time. I don't have to put up with you at all. And always having a smile on your face, and for making the best of every situation. Always seeing the good in every situation and being so kind and so much so it kind of, it never ceases to amaze me. So thank you for all of that. I tell you all the time, I love you very, very much. And, yeah, you make my life a better place. Plus, very, very sexy.